Well, Bill, where are we now?
We're at the house of the Fontes, and they have a couple things we haven't seen before on the tour. But one thing I wanted to mention is a lot of these houses we go to, we talk about the backyards because that's where people spend a lot of their time. But these guys have not forgotten about curb appeal. So this is one of those houses you drive by and you almost say to yourself, wow, I wonder what their backyard looks like, because the front yard looks fantastic.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, we got a couple different things to talk about, and I think the homeowner is going to talk with us too a little bit. One of the nicest things about this front is all the way on the corner over there is a really nice oak leaf hydrangea. These guys usually bloom, but theirs is just blooming extravagantly. It's really a excellent specimen for that species. So let's go back and talk to the homeowners.
Okay, let's do that. I'm with Chris Fonte. How you doing, Chris?
Very well. How are you?
Good. We're out here looking at your magnificent garden today.
Thank you so much. Glad to have you all out.
Tell us a little bit about why you got started with this garden.
Mainly it was just to create privacy and beauty between the homes, and that's kind of what I've accomplished here, and low maintenance garden, and just be a nice place to sit after work.
Okay. So you went with low maintenance.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, for obvious reasons, right?
Yes.
Now, did you have a plan when you got started?
Yes, I did. Actually, the 2 cherry trees here, I planted those before this concrete was even poured.
Okay.
And because I came out and measured and figured out where I wanted them, and then about 3 years later we had the concrete poured. And it turned out pretty good, I think.
Yeah, it did. It looks great out here. I noticed that you also have an area for your kids back there.
Yes, she loves to go back there and play.
Okay, and then looks like maybe a little house out there for you to store some things in.
Yes, that's
all
the
those
shed
gardening tools.
Yes, gardening tools, the mower, and all those good things.
Okay, tell me, how long did it take you to put all this together?
Well, around here, this is probably 5 or 6 years old, just around the patio. And then the garden along the fence is probably a year or less, except for a couple of the taller trees. Everything in the back in the wildlife garden is probably 3-4 years old.
Okay. Now you mentioned wildlife garden. What type of wildlife have you got?
Well, it's certified backyard habitat, which means you have to have food, water, a nesting, and place for cover. So we have, of course, birds, butterflies, caterpillars, rabbits, squirrels, pretty much any wildlife that wants to come in the yard, we welcome it.
Okay. Now, with something this large, your garden is spread out pretty well here. What type of challenges did you go through?
Well, in the back, when we get back there, it holds a lot of water. And there could be 6 inches of water back there standing for a month. So I put in the dry creek bed, put in plants that will sit in basically with wet feet for weeks, and then they can also take the dry weather that we're having today.
Now, I notice you have a mixture of colors here in your garden. Is there a color scheme or a color, some type of plan that you had for those?
I did. You could see with the hydrangeas, you got the oak leaves that get white flowers, and then you have quickfires over here, the taller ones, and they have white flowers as well. Then there's a blue theme. This ground cover here gets blue flowers. You got the blue pot, the blue water feature there, and then all these mints get blue flowers on them too. And there's repetition. There's some here, and then there's some there, and then down that fence.
Okay.
So I try to have repetition throughout the garden.
Was there a great challenge in putting the walk down here, the patio walk and all that?
Not too bad. I mean, I had somebody pour the concrete, and then I put in the patio, just the blocks there.
Okay. You pretty much designed it yourself the way you wanted it?
Yes, everything's designed and installed by me. No help at all.
Okay, now I know you've got your huge shade trees you've got there. How did you choose those? Which ones you wanted to use?
Well, most everything back here, except for these trees right up here, are native trees. They're native to Kentucky. You've got ashes, birches, oaks, maples. You have the service berries, which are one of my favorite trees. You have a lot of stuff here that you'll see out in the wild, but you don't necessarily see in people's yards.
Okay. I see you've got a little yard art, too, going on here.
Yes, I like to try to implement a little bit of yard art. I find that kind of difficult, actually. I'm not an artsy person, so it's kind of hard to find stuff that you think that'll look good, and then it will look good. So my wife helps me out with that stuff.
Okay, so you did have a little help. Huh?
Yes, and she does the pots. She does help much as she can. She's obviously doesn't want to be out here every day like me, but she does help.
Okay. Now, how long did it take you to get ready for this season's garden show? From what to what? Or is it a year-round thing or what?
Well, normally I don't get done doing the mulching and that sort of thing until usually the end of June. But of course, with being on the tour, it forced me to get done earlier, and we actually got a late start with the late spring. So I was under the crunch, but we got it done. Just actually yesterday I finished up.
Well, listen, your garden is wonderful.
Well, thank you
All
so
the
much.
wonderful colors, the variation of the trees and the plants. It looks really great.
Well, I appreciate you all coming out.
All right, thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Okay, Bill, what have we here?
Well, the Fontes don't want to use any chemicals, so they've got a chemical-free environment going on. And one of the ways they're able to do that and minimize their work is kind of a different method of mulching, and they're using pine straw mulch. They put this down almost a foot thick everywhere, and it condenses to about 3 inches thick, but it completely keeps the weeds out. So it's really about availability. It's definitely not the cheapest mulch, but it lasts a couple years, and it is very effective at reducing workload. The other thing they've done along their border here is they've got a metal edge, and then they back that up with some gravel in between. The combination of the straw and then that edge ensures that they don't have grass and weeds getting back into their beds on a regular basis.
Now, does this bedding, does it drown out the weeds that are in there, or do they not grow, or what, is there a chemical reaction? Or
No, it doesn't. The mulch breaks down. It's just a good compost, and it's slightly acidic, so plants that prefer acidic soil, it helps them too. But mainly it's just it's like putting a very thick blanket on top, so it smothers them out. Yeah, they don't get light, and they don't get air, and they end up sort of being crushed under the weight of the mulch. The bigger plants, of course, poke through. They're fine, and they grow great. In fact, over time, as the mulch breaks down, it just adds nutrients to the soil and helps them grow even better.
Wow, that's fantastic.
All right, let me show you one more thing about their property. Let's head to the back.
All right. Okay, so what do we have here, Bill?
Well, the Fontes have made their property a certified wildlife habitat, and that's their official sign from the Kentucky Waterways Alliance. Basically, this area was standing water. It had problems with mosquitoes, it was muddy, and he said that, Chris said that on occasions it would get to 4 or 5 inches deep. So what he's done is he's built a dry creek bed that allows the water to be carried off, and then in front of that he's put beds. But the combination of the two has allowed the drainage problem to be solved, and then he has planted plants that are animal friendly. And he's gone past, a lot of people talk about birds and butterflies, but he even has planted rabbit friendly plants to invite the rabbits in. So trying to just create a little space in a yard where animals have a place to live too.
Well, and can you tell us the name of some of these plants? What are we looking at here?
Well, he's got an ironweed, which is a native right here, and he's got some strawberries on the other side, and I'm not quite sure what he's got in the cages. He's trying to, I guess that's the one thing that doesn't belong to the wildlife. He's trying to save those, at least until they get a little bigger.
Yeah, we've got a couple of those here. So most of these are to entice the wildlife to come and eat.
Right. That's right. And you see behind him, he's got some woodlands, a little area there where probably the wildlife was going along anyway, but it just sort of expands that habitat for him, gives him a little more opportunity.
Wow. There's a lot going on in this garden, huh?
Sure is. I'm sure Chris told you about it, and I think he's really proud of it.